What's up, Tecumseh, you model community of neighborly niceness? Welcome to the Tecumseh Bicentennial Podcast. I'll be your host, Benjamin J Nichols, but you can call me Benjamin. Today, we will speak with lifetime resident Krista Velandra. Well, lifetime with a couple of hiccups, I guess. Mostly lifetime. She moved away a few times, but, she came back. You know what? Never mind. I'm just going to let her tell you herself during the interview. We are also going to hear a T-Town tale from the prettiest girl I know. Emily Nichols shares a story titled Kenray. In today's Bit of History with Bob, Bob talks about Tecumseh Products' involvement in Roosevelt's arsenal democracy. I didn't do the Scottish accent today, and I'll be honest, I feel a little empty and disappointed in myself. I'll try to do better tomorrow. But now, on with the show.
My name is Krista Velandra, and I am a lifetime resident of Tecumseh, Michigan.
So you're a townie.
I am. I guess that's what I am. I'm a townie.
Okay,
sure.
Fair enough. All right, Krista, what is something about you that is not a secret, but most people probably don't know?
I have an ear bone implant that I got in 2018.
Why did you have an ear bone implant?
I have had bad ears since birth, and I've had, I think at this point, over 30 surgeries on my ears.
That's
alone.
Good insurance.
Usually tubes in, tubes out, a little bit of reconstruction. I have floppy eardrums. They fold and they collapse all the time if I get the slightest bit ill. But I also developed something in the ears called cholesteatomas, which are cysts that grow in your ears.
Are they related to cholesterol?
They can be, not really. Okay. They're a little complicated, but they develop and they grow in your ears. And if they get out of control, they can impede the skull and they can actually be fatal. So they have to get them out. Mine were so bad in the right ear that they ate away my ear bone. Well, the little center part of the ear bone. Did you know they're just millimeter? They're so tiny. There's 3 of them. Mine was the middle one. And he discovered it when he was in there. And he said, oh, she doesn't have a middle ear bone. And he came out and he talked to Rob in the waiting room. And he said, we're going to give her a new ear bone. And he said, okay, I guess do it. And so I have an ear bone implant.
So that was a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to pull it together like this and say, all I heard, you have a bionic ear.
I do. I do. That's right. That makes me super cool.
It does. Exactly. Outstanding. I like that. Krista Velandra, what hobbies do you have?
One of them is coffee.
I love that coffee is a hobby.
It is.
It is.
Well, a lot of people probably wouldn't think that, but I think that. I feel that. It's in my soul. Anything coffee. I collect coffee cups. I love trying new coffee. I love stopping into any coffee shop I see. What else? Oh, I'm 50 now, but in my late 40s. Your wife is way better at this stuff than I am, but I finally developed an interest and started giving a try with gardening a little bit. And so I have this wildflower garden in the back corner of my yard, and I'm like uber obsessed with it. What else? Oh, hummingbirds.
Hummingbirds are a hobby?
Hummingbirds are a hobby. I watch them, and I have special feeders, and I name them. You can really tell the difference between certain hummingbirds, especially ones that come around. So it turns into a hobby. So we put them out. We put our feeders out, like about the same time every year when we know they're migrating in, which is usually around Mother's Day. And when we get the first feeders, and it's right outside my recliner window where I can look right out and they come right up. I love them. I absolutely love them.
So what are the names of the hummingbirds?
I have one that I call Spinner. This year we've had a ton, but we haven't had a lot of regulars yet that I know super well. There's this one little male. He's very colorful and his tail curls straight up, which I've never really seen before on a hummingbird. So he's going to get a name, but I haven't quite thought of it yet.
People can always write in with comments.
Oh.
You could do that. You could comment and let
Wow.
Krista know what she should name her hummingbird.
That is special.
With a sticky happy tail. It is, right? You didn't mention something, which I think maybe it's not a hobby and maybe it's going to come later. I don't know, but you have a vlog. I thought it was a podcast, but you have more of a vlog, I guess.
On Facebook, I am known as a Krista Chat.
Spell Krista.
Krista.
Spell chat.
Chat.
Spell
So it is a Krista chat, and I get on there and I just take quick videos of myself. I walk. I'm a walker, so my brain starts going when I'm walking, and sometimes I just want to record what I'm thinking, and it turns into something usually funny or creative. And so when I posted them on my own personal page a lot, people started saying, you ought to do this. And I had originally had the idea of having a podcast, and that never really kicked off. I have a really super microphone. I have like this whole system, and I just never did it. And so I thought, well, it's easier for me just to kind of post on Facebook. And I know it's not everybody's favorite platform, but if you're on Facebook and you want to check me out, please do.
Awesome sauce. Krista Velandra, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I actually have an answer for this. I'd love to have the ability to go back in time just to be able to hug loved ones that are gone. That's it. That's all I want. I don't want to do anything devious to people. I don't want to spy on people. I don't want to be invisible. I just want the ability to go back and not change the future. Like, sometimes people say I want the ability to go back and change things because that would change my whole life, and I don't want that. I just want to be able to go back and say, that moment with my grandma Janice or whatever, I want to go back and give her a great big hug. That's it.
I love that. It's very wholesome.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Grandma Janice ends up, with this like half hour long of these just little second hugs.
Yeah.
All in a row. She's like, what is going on?
Oh,
Chrissy?
Man. It would be so, yeah, she would totally, she was a little wacky, in my adult self, because she passed away when I was in 4th grade. She was everything to me. And so just my adult self being able to go back would be really cool, because then I could really look at her. Because you have these flashback memories, and she hated the camera. She was morbidly obese, so she hated the camera. We have very few pictures of her. But the few that I do have, I kind of have those flashback memories in my head, but it would be really cool to go back and be able to say, oh, and just kind of hug her and any of my loved ones who've passed away.
Absolutely.
All of them.
Well, that is a very good superpower, by the way.
Thanks.
But what superpower did you end up getting stuck with?
This one is a blessing and a curse all in one. But I have like a supersonic, keen sense of smell.
Yes, you do.
Uh-huh. It drives me insane sometimes because I can smell things, I swear to you, that other people cannot. I drive the boys in my home, Rob, my fiance, and my son, Brody. Three of us live in the home. I will smell things. Brody kind of has it too, because Brody will come around a little slower. Rob never smells anything that I smell. And I will smell something from the outside. Someone will be burning something in the neighborhood. I think it's in the home, and I'm frantic. I'm running around. I know that it's an electrical fire in the wall. The home's going to go up. We're going to be in it. We're going to be engulfed. We're all going to die. That's immediately where my mind goes. I can smell the gas from the stove every time I walk by the stove. And so I always think we have a gas leak. So I live in absolute paranoia. But it's also a blessing.
That's horrible.
Yeah, well, I think it's a blessing, though, because what if there was a gas leak? Who's going to smell it? Me first. But if there's never a gas leak, then I'm a crazy lady.
Right. Which we don't mind. We're all right with that. Tell me a story that you plan on telling your grandkids.
I went to Spain when I was in high school. It's so faint now. The memories are so faint because it was 1990, summer of 1990. The flamenco dancing was just so, I love dancing and I love the arts and I love performances, and that was just the coolest. And just going in there and being in that dark, dark place in a foreign country, nobody speaking English around you, and just seeing the sparkly dresses and that kind of dancing I had never seen around here in Tecumseh because we don't have that type of culture here. And so it was really, really just, I didn't want to leave that night. That very distinct memory of that evening that I think was probably one of my favorite parts. And the bus rides and the public transportation is so prominent there. And so walking everywhere and how hot it was. But it was a dry heat, as they say, so it wasn't that bad. We went to the Costa del Sol. We got to see, the ocean and the sun on the ocean and up in these mountains, these little towns. Oh, it was just the neatest trip ever. I guess I do have more memory than I thought I did. Yeah.
Good job. I like it.
Thanks.
What inspires you personally?
The first thing that comes to mind is strong, independent women. Always inspire me. And it could even be strong, independent women that I don't even like, or that I'm not really into, like if we're talking famous people, but quote unquote common people, like people I know or fellow citizens or fellow sisters. Any woman who is confident and strong and who has learned how to change a tire, like I did, because I had to, like when you're single and alone for so long and you have children, there's certain things that you have to learn or teach yourself how to do to survive, because you can't always depend on other people who aren't always going to be there. And so, there's not people in the home to help me do this, so I'm going to learn how to do it myself. Those kind of women always inspire me. Female business owners, women like that are probably the most inspiring people to me. Michelle Obama, and just women who are really just very strong and very confident and who can lead a business or lead a corporation or start a movement and do little things like put together a bookshelf.
Yeah, well, yeah, that matters.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you care passionately about?
Equality. I am very passionate about equality. It's really important to me. It doesn't always feel like it, but I guess the world's gotten better. I just think we have so far to go. And you see it every day in so many different ways. And I'm not just talking through like the media. I'm talking more day-to-day life, walking into a store and seeing how somebody's treated next to you, or working in the industry that I work in the government, and I work for the citizens of our state, and I assist them and speaking with them and realizing the kind of ways that they are treated differently through conversations that I have with them, the capacity that I'm in that I can't really publicize, but
Sure.
The capacity that I'm in, I speak with people from all different backgrounds and all different barriers to being able to maybe have access to the same things that you and I have, or things like that. And I think the more that I interact with people from different backgrounds and cultures and ethnicities, and the more I see how unequally people are treated, and that's very wrong to me. So I am very passionate about that.
Finish this sentence. I remember when.
And I remember when the Tecumseh Civic Auditorium was built. And I know overall in like the course of Tecumseh history, it probably wasn't a big deal to a lot of people, but I think it kind of was. So it was the first time that we actually had a theater, a performing arts theater built, and it was brand spanking new. I remember how it smelled the first time I walked in there. And I was in a lot of performances there. I used to audition for little shows and things, and was in several shows there, and a lot of high school events and band performances were there. And then eventually, several years ago, they changed the name to the Tecumseh. What'd they change it to? Tecumseh Center for the Arts. Yeah, TCA. But it used to be the TCA, Tecumseh Civic Auditorium. And so I still refer to it as a civic auditorium because I forget sometimes, because that's what it is to me. So that was a really big remember when, because I definitely remember when.
Do you have any memories involving a Tecumseh business that you can share?
The ones that really stick in my mind are the ones I spent the most time at as a child, because we would ride our bikes uptown, because Tecumseh is not huge. So we would leave our homes in the morning. We would ride our bikes all over town. We'd stop at somebody's house for lunch or go home for lunch, ride back out on our bikes. And a lot of our time was spent downtown. And historic downtown Tecumseh had the best businesses, because that's all the businesses where you walk in and the floors are all creaky and the walls are, some of them are brick and mortar, and other ones they tried to put up some sort of drywall in front of the brick and ruin it. And then, yeah, a lot of them have that really old stained glass windows in there. So the old dime store was on the corner where there's a little antique place there now. But we're at the main four corners downtown at Evans Street and the Boulevard is the four businesses there. And then on the one corner, it would be the northeast corner, was the dime store. And then behind that, kind of a little bit up Evans, was Kenray, which was a giant drugstore where everybody went and got their prescriptions. And there were a lot of really weird things about the inside of that building. They had a ramp inside the building that went up to the prescription counter. remember thinking as a child that I always wanted to slide down it, but it was carpeted and you couldn't. But Ken Ray had the biggest candy section. And so in between the end of school and our after school events, you usually had a little time to run up there with your friends, get all the candy you could, get all hopped up on sugar, and then go back to your school event.
Today's T-Town Tale is short and sweet, and I think there's probably a bit of a pun there. I don't know if pun is the right word. You figure it out and let me know what you think. Anyway, today's T-Town Tale from Emily Nichols is titled Ken Ray and is remarkably relevant to Krista's interview.
When I was in middle school, it was really close to Ken Ray. For those of you who are a lot younger, that's now where Dana Gillen has his optical office is in there. There's a quilting place upstairs and a couple of other little businesses downstairs. The Mustard Seed used to be in there. But when I was a kid, it was Ken Ray, and it was a drugstore. And they had long Jolly Ranchers. And they were flat, so it kind of was like a Laffy Taffy looking thing, but it was a Jolly Rancher. And I'm pretty sure they were like 10 cents. And so sometimes after class was over at middle school, I would walk over there with a couple of people and get like a bunch of candy for like $1. It was really, really great. And I think there was an older woman in there who used to watch us kind of like a hawk, because I'm sure somebody has pocketed those Jolly Ranchers before. But I always loved going there.
So Ken Ray and the dime store, and then there was this really cool store downtown that I really miss, and I got my mother a lot of gifts there growing up. It was called the Boulevard Emporium, and it was a really cool shop that was dark, and it was like Victorian, I want to say. Very Victorian kind of. She had so much stuff in there for sale. And in the back corner, there was this whole like kids section with these really old-timey, retro, vintage type toys that were recreations, obviously. But you could go in there and get, like the little paddle ball thing, or you could go in and get some little mini erasers or things like that. Like, it was really neat. But the place, like I said, it was dark and it was almost like a Victorian feel. And the woman who owned it was so nice, and we'd go up there and just kind of hang out and talk with her and buy ourselves little things or buy little gifts for our parents. But the place reeked beautifully of potpourri. The strongest potpourri smell. So you could smell it walking by it on the street. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful place. She was around for many years. And then another big business, it's the last one I'll mention, Chilean House. Well, a lot of people call it the Chilean House, but it's Chilean. And it was the best tacos you'll ever have in your life. And when you walked in, it smelled of grease and corn, and it was the most delicious ever food I've ever had. And I really miss that place. I compare every taco in my life to the Chilean House tacos, and nothing has ever really compared. Comes close, but nothing's ever really compared.
Those are great. Do you have any memories involving a Tecumseh Park?
Yes. And this one, yes.
See, I wish this was on camera so everybody could see the face.
So, and I live in that neighborhood now. So in the Herrick Park subdivision, at the very entrance of the Herrick Park subdivision off of Maumee Street, right, okay, is Memorial Park. So when we were kids, we just called it Memorial Park. But I think now it's the Kiwanis Bird Memorial Park, right? Yes. But anyway, so Memorial Park, and there was no playground down there. So it was not really even a park, man. It was just this hill. And there was a telephone pole kind of at the base of the hill. And it was the steepest hill. Now they've built a sidewalk embedded into the side of the hill, kind of. It totally ruined it. But our sledding adventures there were epic, just epic. And it would get so slippery, and it was such a steep hill and long. And you would try really hard and succeeded quite often if you could make it from the top of the hill all the way to the river without going into the river.
Yeah, an important detail.
Exactly. And if you did make it into the river, well, that would have been very bad. But there was also a telephone pole. And next to this hill, next to this open quote-unquote park, which it never really, there were no benches. I don't even know how it was a park, but it was, I guess. And now it's a park. Now they have a playground. They have a bridge. It's very, very nice. It's our favorite park in town still. It's just different. So right next to the big steep hill was a forest. I call it a forest, but we're in Tecumseh and it's Herrick Park. It's not a forest. It's woods. So
it depends on your age, I suppose, because if you're, 8 or 9, it's a forest.
Yes.
It feels like it.
It did. And so we'd go in there and feel like we were lost for days, and we weren't. There's houses all around, but it always felt very isolated and very much like an adventure. But the boys, and I don't think any of us girls ever did this, but the boys would go in there at night with their sleds and do this thing called quote-unquote suicide sledding. And I know that's a negative word, but that's what we called it then. And they would go down. And I remember my brother Brent got very injured doing that. He's got a huge scar, I think, on his knee. He had a rock in it or something. Anyway, so a lot of blood on the snow, a lot of probably broken teeth, maybe cracked skulls. It was not good. Our parents probably would have been very upset had they known.
So is that on the other side of the river?
No, it's like right next to the hill. So
it's where the telephone pole is.
Yeah, to left.
So to the left.
Like if you're looking down the hill.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that whole side there. Oh man, and you'd hear them just going down. You'd hear it echoing through the city. So those are some really great memories that I have of Memorial Park.
Do you have any memories involving a Tecumseh or Tecumseh? How do you pronounce it, Tecumseh or Tecumseh?
Okay, so it's supposed to be Tecumseh.
Okay.
But anybody who lives here pronounces it wrong, and that's right.
Love that.
Okay.
That's a soundbite.
Okay.
Do you have any memories involving a Tecumseh school?
Yeah, so I went to Herrick Park Elementary School, which is the subdivision I live in now. I believe it's going to be part of one of the schools that's going to be shut down because the millage didn't pass and the budget cuts. But I went to elementary school there from kindergarten through 6th grade, except for 1 year. 1st grade, there were too many of us. So they took all the 1st graders from every elementary school in town and put us all at St. Elizabeth Church. So you know that little building next to it where they have all their roast beef dinner and everything? And they have probably their catechism classes in there and everything. That was a mini school. And so every 1st grader from every school was in there. We all had our own 1st grade teacher. It was all 1st grade. So I had Miss Slater, who during the school year got married, and we were invited, all of us kids in her class were invited to her wedding. That was super cool.
That is cool.
And then when 1st grade was done, we left St. Elizabeth and went back to our respective schools. It was very bizarre.
That is bizarre. That's
Why
weird.
1st grade? Why just 1st grade?
We
were the same amount of kids going from 1st to 2nd, and we were the same amount of kids coming from kindergarten to 1st, so I didn't get it.
All right, so any of the older audience who knows the answer to that question, let us know because we want to know.
I would love to know that.
Why 1st grade? That's good. What your hopes? Wow, let me try again in English. What hopes do you have for the future of Tecumseh?
I really, really hope that future residents are a bit more accepting, progressive, and for there to be a little more diversity interspersed into the neighborhoods and into the businesses. I would like more diversity in business to come into the area. I believe a lot of people don't really get out much, even now, and aren't exposed to a whole lot. And there's so much out there very close to us, Ann Arbor, Toledo, Jackson even, where there's this really, really, really nice kind of culture that's immersive and has become like a part of the city. And I would love to see more of that in our town, like more ethnic restaurants, maybe a Vietnamese place or a Thai restaurant or some sushi. It would be nice to have a little more variety. And I think that if we had people with different backgrounds coming in than the people that tend to be here would make this a much more inviting place. Tecumseh kind of gets this reputation that the city is full of people who are not accepting of others, or that it tends to be a little snooty sometimes. And when you live here and you grew up here and you were born here and you were raised here and you stomped around here, and you know that's not true. And you know that there's people here that are absolutely in love with learning about new cultures and really want to have a more diverse neighborhood system, and where you can maybe have a neighbor bring you over something you've never eaten before and you try it, that kind of a thing. And it does happen, and we do have much more diversity in this town than we ever did before. And so I want to say that's a positive that has happened. It just needs to happen more. Many of us want to be able to go down the street to pick up some sushi, fresh hand-rolled sushi, as opposed to having to go to a bigger city and spend our money elsewhere. And these are things that so many of the citizens of Tecumseh really do want. And I think it would do well. I just really wish for more diversity, and especially in business.
What advice or message do you have for the people of Tecumseh 100 years from now when they are celebrating their tricentennial?
Yes. Do not ever, ever let the history of this city die. We have an incredible historical society. It is so stellar, and the people put blood, sweat, and tears into it, and I don't believe they're given enough credit. I don't think they're recognized enough.
Speaking of Tecumseh's stellar historical society, our own town historian Bob Elliott talks to us today in A Bit o' History with Bob. Bob talks about Tecumseh Products' involvement in Roosevelt's arsenal democracy.
The war effort stuff, you talk about the arsenal democracy, and that's extremely important for us people here in Michigan. You think about the bomber plant and will it run, make 1 an hour, assembly lines, making stuff. And I always get a kick out. So Randolph Churchill toured southeastern Michigan in a day, and he went to the bomber plant down there. And when Henry Ford's rolling one bomber off an hour, that he said that the Nazis, Himmler, if they actually saw Willow run, they'd slit their own wrist. That's amazing that, I don't know if our country could do that again, but to be able to push things out as they did, Saginaw Gear making M1 carbines and tank plants, and just, wow, we were focused as Americans. And Ray Herrick making the shells for the Navy. There's letters there that captains of destroyers out in the Pacific saying, that's our shell, man. It knocks down the kamikaze planes and saves us all from carnage, that's awesome.
The history mixed with the people who lived it, who are still here, and who could still tell the stories, or who had family and relatives to pass along stories, who passed along stories. I know it's everywhere, but for some reason, it's the place that I'm from. And so it's all very, nostalgic to me, and it's all very important to me that it stays, that they keep the integrity of the buildings, of course, like to the best of their ability, while trying to modernize along with the world, but maintaining that historical integrity. Like, for instance, when you walk in a place downtown, it still smells like the business that was there 50 years before. And you can walk in there and just kind of go, oh, and you still have the memory of that old place that you spent all that time in, but you also have, the new place that has come in, and you're welcoming it because that's still there, and you can still walk in that place even if it's not the same.
And the creeks are in the same places.
Yes, and the creeks are in the same places. There was a family that moved here. Please don't ask me where they were from because I don't know, but their last name was Suidam, and Mr. Suidam had a couple of boys, but he was a store owner. So he opened a little convenience store just down the street from me on Evans Street, where Jerry's Market is now. There's that little weird building on the corner. It's been a whole bunch of different things. It has been a real estate place. It has been an allergy doctor center, kind of, just north of Frosty Boy. And Mr. Suidam had a convenience store there for years. In the 80s, I believe it was, maybe into the early 90s, but at least through like mid 80s to the end of the 80s. And we developed a relationship, all of us kids, with Mr. Suidam, that was the sweetest, most genuine relationship. He was so good with all of us kids. So you would think, a lot of times you hear like the grumpy store owner, they don't like the kids coming in and all those darn kids or whatever. Mr. Suidam loved us. And so we would go down there and he learned all of our names over time. He had a very heavy accent and he loved me. Okay, I'm going to talk myself up because this dude made me feel like the coolest kid in the world. So I would go down there, and it was a candy store too. Big candy section. So we all went down there. I would often go down there, and my aunt developed a relationship with him where she would call down there. She was a new single mom, and she couldn't leave the baby, so she'd send me down there to pick up her cigarettes. And she'd call Mr. Suidam ahead of time and say, I'm going to send Krista down to pick them up. She has money. Okay, send her down. He had a really heavy accent. And I could understand him, and, it wasn't that heavy that you couldn't understand him. And he was the nicest man. So he learned my name. And he knew my name was Krista, and he would ask me over and over again, what is your name again? And I would say, Krista. He said, oh, beautiful name, beautiful name. Oh, beautiful name for a beautiful girl. You look at your long brown hair, so sweet. I'll tell your parents I said hello. Just always very welcoming and kind. And when I would ride my bike by his store, once he learned my name, he would just call me Chris. But when he would run out, he would say, he'd start waving and he'd say, hey, Chris. And so my mom, to this day, calls me Chris.
Oh.
And so she will see me and she'll say, hey, Chris. And nobody knows where it comes from. It comes from Mr. Suidam.
I love that.
He had such an impact on us that it was like, we still, to this day, they still call me Hey Chris and Trisket and everything else, but Chrissy. Chrissy. Yeah, but anyway, so the people of the town is so important. And like you said, it's really what makes Tecumseh pretty cool. And regardless of our reputation, all the little cities around us, we all have our little city battles, Clinton people think that, Tecumseh is like a big city compared to Clinton. And then, Tecumseh looks at Adrian as, that's the bigger city. And we run there to get things that we don't have here in Tecumseh. And then Adrian looks at Tecumseh as the snotty folks. And, and we're getting there. We're getting there, just not fast enough for my taste.
Sure. All right. Are there any questions that you wish that I had asked?
My absolute favorite thing about Tecumseh?
Yeah. Wait. What's your favorite thing about Tecumseh?
My absolute favorite thing about Tecumseh is it always feels the same. It always feels like home. And it always feels like memories. I've moved away from this town 3 times. Each time was pretty brief in my life. So the first time I ever left the city and was exposed outside of here was when I went off to college, and I went to Western and lived in Kalamazoo for a couple of years at Western, and then I dropped out of Western. All right, I flunked out, okay? I flunked out of Western.
I mean, I wasn't going to out you like that.
I would. No, but my mother would. So if she listens to this, she'd be like, no, Chrissy, you didn't really... you didn't leave on your own accord. You know that they didn't want you back. And then, so, my grades weren't the best because I left this little place that is pretty sheltered, or really was at the time. I went into this much bigger city with people from all walks of life, and I was in it. And I was into the people and the partying and the freedom, and neglected every bit of school and got some good grades, most of them not at all. And they didn't want me to return, so I didn't. But I lived up there for another year. So I was in Kalamazoo for about 3.5, 4 years total. And then I came back here, and then I moved to Saline for a little bit, and then I moved back here again, and then I moved to Ann Arbor for a little bit, and then I moved back here again. So it keeps pulling me back, but it's mostly because my family's here. But I just really think that my favorite thing absolutely about Tecumseh is that no matter how often I left, or no matter how long it was that I was gone, every time I came back, it was the same feeling. The second you pull into the city, it smells the same. Smells the same always. It feels the same. The air is always the same, no matter how much changes. And I think that people need to understand that this place isn't going to change as being a home if we progress forward. It's just going to be a better version of that home and this place that we love.
Well, that is going to do it for today's episode. Thope is not a word. Thope is something that you use to wash your hands. I hope that you don't find English as difficult as I do. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I hope that you have an idea for a name for Krista's little hummingbird friend with a sticky uppy tail. I also hope that some of you who may be further along in your seasoning might have some idea as to why it was Krista's first grade class had to go off campus to the Catholic Church premises. Come back tomorrow, June 29th, when I interview Phil Devaney. Yeah, I agree with you. You're very smart, Tecumseh. See you tomorrow. Okay.